Rain lashed against the windows. Wind howled like a banshee. Martha huddled deeper into her armchair, a book trembling in her hands. Each gust rattled the old house, each flash of lightning momentarily banished the comforting shadows. She longed for the storm to pass, for the familiar silence of her solitary life to return. Her gaze drifted to the old grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Midnight, the witching hour. A shiver ran down her spine. She chided herself for the childish thought. At 35 she was too old for such fancies. Yet the storm's fury played on her nerves, amplifying every creak and groan of the house. "Martha, I can't concentrate on this book anymore." Martha placed her book aside, unable to concentrate. She walked to the window, her breath fogging the cold glass. The world outside was a maelstrom. Trees bowed low, their branches swaying wildly. The power lines hummed, threatening to plunge her into darkness. A sudden rap on the door made her jump. Her heart pounded in her chest. Who would venture out on a night like this? Trepidation warred with curiosity as she crept towards the door, her hand hovering over the brass handle. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door a crack. A gust of wind almost tore it from her grasp. Rain lashed in, momentarily blinding her. Then she saw him. He stood on her doorstep, a tall, imposing figure silhouetted against the storm. Rain plastered his dark hair to his forehead, and his clothes clung to his lean frame. He offered her a disarming smile, his eyes the colour of warm honey, gleaming with an almost unnatural light. "Traveller." "Good evening, ma'am. I do apologise for the intrusion, but my car seems to have given up the ghost a mile or so back. Might I impose upon your hospitality until this dreadful storm passes?" Martha hesitated. Years of living alone had made her cautious, yet there was something about the stranger's demeanour, a quiet confidence that put her at ease. And the storm. It was no night to turn away even a stray dog, let alone a human being. "Martha, of course, please come in." He entered, bringing with him the scent of rain and something else, a subtle masculine fragrance that sent a shiver down her spine. She quickly closed the door, shutting out the storm's fury. He looked around the room, his gaze lingering on the worn furniture and the few family photos that adorned the mantelpiece. "Traveller, thank you. You're most kind." There was a hint of sadness in his eyes, a vulnerability that tugged at her heartstrings. The storm raged on, but within the confines of Martha's cottage, a different kind of tempest brewed. They sat by the fire, the stranger regaling her with stories of his travels, his voice a soothing balm against the wind's howl. He spoke of faraway lands, of cultures and customs so different from her own, painting vivid pictures with his words. She listened, captivated, her own life, so ordinary and predictable, fading into the background. "Martha, you have the most incredible stories." He made her laugh, his humour dry and unexpected. He listened intently as she spoke, his gaze never leaving her face. As the hours ticked by, Martha felt a strange sensation bloom within her chest. It was a warmth she hadn't felt in years, a flutter of excitement that both exhilarated and terrified her. This man, a complete stranger, had somehow managed to breach the walls she had so carefully erected around her heart. Yet, with every shared smile, every brush of his hand against hers, fear gnawed at her. What did she know about this man? He was like the storm itself, powerful, unpredictable, capable of wreaking havoc on her carefully ordered life. "Traveller, you have a lovely home, Martha. It feels safe." Martha's heart raced, torn between the allure of his presence and the fear of the unknown. He stayed for 3 days. 3 days that felt like a lifetime. The storm passed. The sun returned, bathing the world in its golden light. Yet the stranger lingered, And with each passing hour, Martha found herself drawn deeper into his orbit.
He was a whirlwind of contradictions. One moment, he was charming and attentive, showering me with compliments, his eyes reflecting a depth of emotion that took my breath away.
The next, he was distant, withdrawn, lost in his thoughts, a shadow of sadness crossing his handsome features.
He never spoke of his past, of where he came from or where he was going, and I, afraid to shatter the fragile spell we had woven, didn't ask. I was content to live in the moment, to bask in the warmth of his presence, even as a part of me screamed at my folly.
One evening, as they walked along the now peaceful shoreline, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, he took her hand in his. His touch sent a jolt of electricity through her, and she found herself leaning into him, seeking his warmth. He stopped, turning to face her, his eyes searching hers. S2, Martha. He trailed off, and in that moment, Martha saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes, a hesitation that mirrored her own. He wanted to say something important, she could feel it, but then, just as quickly, the moment passed. S2. Martha,
Never mind, it's nothing.
But it wasn't nothing, and they both knew it. The unspoken words hung heavy between them, a tangible barrier to their newfound intimacy. Section 7. A Glimmer of Hope. That night, as Martha lay awake, his scent still lingering on her pillow, she knew she couldn't ignore the truth any longer.
I have fallen for him, fallen hard and fast. But what does he feel for me? Is it merely gratitude, a fleeting infatuation?
She yearned to know, to have him confess his feelings, to hear him say the words that would ease the turmoil in her heart.
What if by forcing the issue, I shatter the fragile illusion we've created?
The thought of him leaving, of returning to her solitary existence, was almost unbearable.
But can I live with the uncertainty, with the constant fear that he will disappear as suddenly as he arrived?
Section 8. Farewell. Under a Silent Sky. The next morning, Martha awoke to an empty house. She found him on the porch, gazing out at the horizon, a small suitcase by his side. He turned as she approached, a sad smile gracing his lips.
I should be on my way.
His voice was heavy with unspoken words. Martha's heart plummeted. So this was it. The ending she had both dreaded and expected. She whispered, her voice choked with emotion. He took a step towards her, his eyes filled with a mixture of tenderness and regret. S1, why?
Some storms are best weathered alone.
And with that, he was gone. He walked away without a backward glance, disappearing into the morning mist, leaving Martha standing on the porch, her heart shattered into a million pieces. Section 9. The Silence After the Storm. The days that followed were a blur of pain and anger. Pain at his absence, at the gaping hole he had left in her life. Anger at herself for allowing herself to fall for a stranger, for believing even for a moment that their connection could withstand the storms of life.
I threw myself into my work, trying to outrun the memories that haunted my waking hours. But every sunset, every whispered word on the wind, every unexpected knock on the door sent my heart racing, hoping against hope that he had returned.
But he didn't. And slowly, painfully, Martha began to pick up the pieces of her life.
I realized that in his brief time with me, the stranger hadn't broken my heart, but rather, he had shown me how much it was capable of feeling. He had awakened a part of me that I thought had long lain dormant, a capacity for love and passion that I had denied myself. Section
10. A Heart Forged Anew. Years later, Martha sat on the porch swing, a cup of tea warming her hands. The memory of the stranger, of the storm that had upended her life, still lingered, but the sharp edges of pain had softened with time.
I have emerged from the wreckage of that experience stronger, wiser. I have learned that love, like a storm, can be both exhilarating and destructive. That sometimes the bravest thing one can do is to open one's heart, even if it means risking it breaking.
As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, Martha smiled. The stranger had been a storm in her life, yes, but even storms eventually pass, leaving behind fertile ground for new beginnings.